Hi, I'm Claire Tompkins, the Clutter Coach, and this is the Organize Your Life podcast. I am passionate about organizing because it makes my clients' lives so much easier, more relaxed, and with more time to spend the way they want to. In every podcast in the show, I'll lay out a simple organizing concept, and I'll tell you why it's important. I'll also include an action step at the end so you can start practicing right away. My specialty is chunking down this big topic so it's not overwhelming. That's the concept for this podcast, which is based on my first book, 52 Simple Ways to Get Organized. The book is available on my website and on Amazon. I work with clients in person in the Berkeley, California area and via email and Skype, so you don't have to be local to me. Visit the Hire tab on my website or email me at claire@cluttercoach.net. If you like the show, please rate it and review it. To do that, go to my website, cluttercoach.net, and scroll down for the show notes. Each show notes post has a link to leave a review in iTunes. I would so appreciate that. Okay, on to the podcast. This is podcast 68, and it's called Start Somewhere. It's about a trick you can use if you're having trouble starting something. Back in podcast 24, called Baby Steps, I talked about a similar thing, how you can make progress on a project by taking the smallest possible step, the least intimidating, easiest step. Baby steps and the technique I'm going to talk about today are very helpful for big projects that can be just daunting. One reason people have a hard time starting is that the project is so big they can't wrap their minds around all there is to do to finish it. There are just too many steps and the order is unclear. Another one is that they feel they don't have the resources or the skills to do the job properly, and they psych themselves out because of it. Still another one is that the end result is really important to get right, so they want everything to be perfect. And if you've been listening to this podcast, you know how detrimental being a perfectionist is. Here's the news flash. You don't have to start at the beginning. Starting from a standstill is really hard. It's like when Olympic athletes lift those heavy weights from the floor to above their heads in one movement. It's really hard. That's why it's an Olympic event, right? And here's another example, inertia. Inertia is the resistance of any physical object to any change in its state of motion. Inertia is the reason remote controls were invented. No one wants to have to get off that sofa to change the TV channel. It's too much energy. Before you start a project, you're in a state of inertia. Nothing has happened yet. You're at rest. Getting started requires some oomph. So give yourself a break and ease into it sideways. Ways to do that capitalize on your knowledge, your enthusiasm, and your skills. For example, you may have a clear idea about something that needs to happen in the middle or near the end of the project. In many cases, you don't have to go in a linear order. You can mix up the tasks you need to do. So do that thing you understand. When you start in a spot where you have clarity, it can make your next action clearer as well. You'll be in motion, and that always makes it easier to keep moving. That's the second part of the definition of inertia. It's the tendency of objects to keep moving in a straight line at a constant velocity. Make the most of your enthusiasm for the project. What's the part of it you like to do? That's a good place to start because we naturally have more energy for doing stuff we enjoy. And energy will overcome inertia, so start there. If that feels like eating dessert first and that it will make the rest of the project miserable, focus on comparing the steps that are left to each other, not to what you just did. People don't make judgments in a vacuum. We're always comparing things to other things. How you feel about thing number one has everything to do with what thing number two is. Thing number one doesn't have an absolute value. So in this case, what I mean is that no matter where you are in the project, you can find a next step to do that you like better than the remaining ones. And do that one. Third, find a task that you have the skills to do well and do that first. Completing something easily and happily because you're good at it is very satisfying. As with the other suggestions, this utilizes our preferences for doing things we like and can do well. Of course, finishing things that take a lot of sweat and effort is also satisfying, but part of my not-so-secret agenda in this podcast, and in all the work I do, is to emphasize the positive. I just don't believe that a goal you struggle for is worth more than one that you achieve without that struggle. There's nothing wrong with doing things you like and do well. It's not cheating, I promise. Finding ways to make the tasks of life easier and more fun is my life mission, my friends. Okay, what can you do right now? Think about that big project you need to start and choose one of the strategies. Either start by doing the part you understand the best, the one you like the best, or the one that lets you use the skills you enjoy. And get rolling. Hey, thanks for listening. I'm Claire Tompkins, the Clutter Coach. If you like the show, I'd love it if you leave a rating and review in iTunes. You can subscribe, too, so the podcast will be ready and waiting for you to listen to. You'll find the show notes on my blog at www.cluttercoach.net, and you can check out my store to find books I've written and a whole bunch of other stuff. If you're a fan of the show, you can become a patron on patreon.com for as little as $1 a month. You can find my page by going to the Patreon website, that's Patreon, and searching on Clutter Coach. I'll still post the podcast free of charge, but I've got some cool rewards for folks who want to help me make the show even better. Come back next week for a new podcast.